As the climate crisis looms and a serious global response is slow in coming, who will be affected first?
It's Black communities that will be hit the hardest. It's impoverished communities that will be hit the hardest.
Indigenous peoples are also among the most vulnerable. Long on tradition but short on resources, they're rallying for environmental justice.
We're changing the lens on who we're speaking to, who's speaking, and how we're creating solutions.
In central Brooklyn, small but determined groups are working to get their neighbors involved in the fight. And where better to start than with access to healthier food?
I live here in Brooklyn, about 2 blocks away from here. And it's very important to me that we get our veggies right here in the neighborhood.
And to self-sustaining energy. This week, Frontlines Facing the Future. By now, most of us realize that climate change is a global issue. But is it your problem? The way you answer that question will reveal a lot about who you are and where you live. Red Hook, Brooklyn is a shoreline community on the front line of a climate crisis. It's also what some would point to as a prime example of environmental racism, where injustice occurs in policy and practice within a racialized context. When the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency published its plan for the cleanup of the Superfund site that is the Gowanus Canal, it included plans for a large steel structure to house the poisonous sediment dredged from the canal and located on the banks of the New York Harbor, adjacent to Brooklyn's largest NYCHA development, the Red Hook houses, where 3,600 residents were left without power and 4,000 had no heat or hot water after Hurricane Sandy and its 5-foot storm surge. Since the storm, these semi-permanent structures composed of fabric and dirt have been deposited here, some half a mile away from the Red Hook houses. And while that is some measure of progress, residents fear it won't be enough for the storm next time. While there is no single solution to the climate crisis or lone path to ending environmental injustice, Brooklynites are starting right where they are, at the intersection of race and the environment, for sustainability, anti-colonialism, and a just transition.
Climate change is real, it is man-made.
When Bernie is in the White House, he'll provide a just transition for the workers who have powered our economy.
That I advocate for is fully funding the pensions of coal miners in West Virginia and throughout Appalachia, because we want a just transition.
You may have heard a lot about a just transition lately. It's the concept that change that benefits everyone shouldn't be at the expense of the underprivileged few.
You represent this district here in the Bronx and Queens. People got all sorts of issues. And the first big issue you're doing is a Green New Deal.
So to get us out of this situation, to revamp our economy, to create dignified jobs for working Americans, we will have to mobilize our entire economy around saving ourselves and taking care of this planet.
We have to stop the thinking that clean energy and job creation don't go together. They do. They do.
In central Brooklyn, a just transition is already in effect. New York City is reducing the impacts of climate change by transitioning to clean energy. And the Brooklyn Movement Center is ensuring that the city puts workers first as it makes a just transition to sustainable jobs that champion food justice and clean energy. One obstacle central Brooklyn faces is a lack of healthy and affordable food. It's one of the neighborhoods with the poorest access to grocery stores. But Mark Griffith, the executive director of the Brooklyn Movement Center, believes they can solve that problem.
I've lived in central Brooklyn almost all my life and have worked here as an adult, and I believe in social justice and grew up believing that the power was in community organizing. So what you have in the background is emblematic of a new generation of bodegas that have moved into the neighborhood that market organic food that is healthy and that, I welcome on some level, but is really not for long-term residents of this neighborhood. So check this out. Instead of this being sort of an open wound and a boarded up location here in the middle of the neighborhood, this is the location of the Central Brooklyn Food Co-op. And you have a large building, a place that is a hub for community health, for community revitalization, environmental justice, and a place where people come to not only shop for food, but to trade, to be involved in economic opportunity, and to be a part of something that is actually feeding and nourishing this neighborhood.
Although the Central Brooklyn Food Co-op has already raised $47,000 towards the project, Mark estimates it'll need another $100,000 to cover real estate, inventory, equipment, and salaries. The rest of the money will come from member investments. The community's already built a successful system of community gardens, a sure sign that a food co-op will go over well in central Brooklyn.
A community garden is an important part of any kind of strategy for just transition and addressing the effects of climate change, right? And what we want to do with the Central Brooklyn Food Co-op is create a partnership so that not only are community gardens producing food, but they actually have markets for that food.
Jeanette Fleming is the president of the Hattie Carthen Community Garden and thinks that providing fresh food and jobs to her neighborhood is a priority.
I am a New York State registered woman farmer. Food justice is more than how much food you distribute. It has to do with who's producing the food. It has to do with how much food you have access to. The youths that you see in the front will teach the community by doing cooking demos, will help people to shop, will help people to understand the nutritional values in food, what the foods are used for, what the herbs are used for. What we're about to do out there is a frittata with 5 or 6 fresh vegetables with eggs. And you will see the youths putting that together and bringing simple recipes that they could share with neighbors and teach.
My name is Ann Lino. I live here in Brooklyn, about 2 blocks away from here. And it's very important to me that we get our veggies right here in the neighborhood. It's grown here and it's fresher, and you're giving back to the community.
Although the Central Brooklyn Food Co-op won't be up and running for another 9 months, its potential community impact is already informing decision-making.
This also is going to have a big impact on our economy. So you're going to have local people who are going to be working and part owners of the food co-op. It's an act of community reinvestment.
While food co-ops and community gardens may help solve the issue of food scarcity, there's still another problem. Families living below the poverty line of $32,000 have to devote nearly 10% of their income to energy costs. To address this problem, the Central Brooklyn Movement Center has set its sights on solar.
This technology can be a game changer. Through the Central Brooklyn Solar Project, I've been inspired to install solar panels on my roof, but I've noticed a definite decrease in my energy bills.
After installing the solar panels, Mark found he saved between 10 to 20% on his energy bill.
So the Central Brooklyn Community Solar Project is part of a larger community resilience vision where we can help bring green energy alternatives to Central Brooklyn, help them work for local people, and also help build out the workforce.
The New York City Housing Authority has teamed up with Central Brooklyn Community Solar, as well as another organization called Solar One, to install solar panels on the roofs of public housing. Solar One and Central Brooklyn Community Solar will train neighborhood residents to install solar panels on 40 public housing rooftops next year.
So what we're talking about is the possibility of people being economically secure, being able to pay their energy bills, to light their homes. We're talking about the possibility of people not having to experience brownouts, vulnerability. And what we're talking about is the possibility that Black and brown people living in Central Brooklyn don't have to contribute to climate change.
Sustainability may be a new concept for us now, but for the indigenous cultures who populated the planet long before there was a crisis, it was a way of life.
Our system is broken. It doesn't mean that it's wrong, it just needs healing. As we heal ourselves, we're able to heal the planet. And so my dream is really to be able to have a movement that comes from the energy of love. We give thanks to the heart of the sky. Le damos gracias al corazón del cielo. We give thanks to the heart of the earth. Le damos gracias al corazón de la tierra. We give thanks to the heart of the water. Le damos gracias al corazón del agua. We give thanks to the heart of the fire. Le damos gracias al corazón del fuego. We give thanks to all four winds that we breathe. Le damos gracias a los cuatro vientos que respiramos. We give thanks to the light within. Le damos gracias a nuestra luz interior.
Thank you to the spirit of cacao. Thank you for allowing us to dissolve all those barriers that we have set against ourselves, so we can remember the language of the heart and begin to listen, but also speak from that space. And thank you to Nana Marina and Tata Pedro and all the elders, all the ancestors that have passed on this wisdom from generation to generation.
On a physical level, cacao is really preparing us for a spiritual experience. And what that means, spirituality is a communication with the Creator, with the Source, and also with this earth. So on a physical level, cacao is opening up our blood vessels. It gets the blood stimulated so you feel all this natural energy, but it's also relaxing the muscles, the joints, the nervous system. So it creates such a beautiful duality of being awake, but then also really relaxed. And that allows us to better understand what is the message that this plant is bringing. All these plants are really there to assist us in the understanding of the communication with this earth. And so cacao is a representation of love. It's that motherly energy that really supports us through the process. So it's not a psychoactive plant that's going to take you away, but it's actually bringing you closer to home. And in the Mayan cosmovision, they really understand that all of us come here with a calling, with a purpose. And when we create these spaces for us to listen and be heard, then we can really understand what our purpose is in the here and now. And then we can start walking and taking that action. So we're gathering together from different communities, from different backgrounds, to honor and invoke the Amazon, to pray for this healing, and also pray for our own healing. As we heal ourselves, we're able to heal the planet.
Our future generations are important to us. If we don't take charge of our future generations and clean up for them, they're going to have a drastic time in their time. I'm here as a keeper of peace, keeper of waters, and a worshiper and blesser of winds. We have to take care of our four seasons and learn from them. Every day, she is calling for us. Every day, she is speaking to us. We may not hear it in words, but we hear Mother Nature when she shakes her skirt.
The area that we gathered is where, the 9/11 towers came crashing down, and we gathered around a tree. It was the only tree that survived those attacks, which, is symbolic of how we are going to survive this climate challenge that we are in, and we're going to rise, and we're going to overcome it, and we're going to come together as a species. And that was kind of the goal, is to show this in a micro way, what we're going to do globally in this next decade. And so my perspective is that the Oculus World Trade Center, which is this building actually modeled after a dove of peace, is the heartbeat of human activity on our planet. And so we did this to the heart. So we tried to really bring healing to the heart of really humanity and Earth at the same time.
I think the biggest thing we're missing is unity, and as I said, todos unidos. We need to understand that we are truly one. We have been conditioned out of being ourselves, and we need to understand that the most important thing that we have on this earth is each other. Once that message is understood, then I think we can move forward on other issues.
We don't destroy ourselves because we're not destroying Mother Earth. Mother Earth will still be here, but we're long gone. The ones that we're destroying is ourselves. We'll leave nothing for our children if we keep on going the way we are. We can see it constantly. A hurricane comes, destroys everything. Earthquake comes, destroys everything. And it just regenerates. The earth regenerates. But we are the ones that are going to suffer. We're the ones that are going to be extinct.
The burning of our forests is part of the monetary racism, the capitalist system. Racism in the money. Because I guarantee you, if we were a bit smarter on our spending, on our funding, on our supporting, we wouldn't have these problems. Those Native Americans, those natives on the Amazon forests would be well armed and well fortified against the government. But we're too busy producing and consuming, producing and consuming, producing and consuming, and mainly consuming 75% of the things that we don't need in our lives.
I want to live. I want my children to live. I want my children to enjoy the planet. And I want my people to understand that when the climate changes, right, we're in the middle of a crisis. When everything changes, these oppressors have us living in areas that will be more devastated than other places. You look at Louisiana, you look at flooding in Florida as well as Virginia. It's black communities that will be hit the hardest. It's impoverished communities that will be hit the hardest. We'll suffer, and we're not in a position to help ourselves. That's scary.
Our earth right now is going through a process of inflammation. Just like when we get sick, all of the energy gathers in one space to heal us. And this is the earth letting us know she's sick. And she's not needing us to do so much. What she's asking for is a space to breathe. If you think about where this is happening, this is the lungs of our planet. That's our breath. So the moment that we create space for her to breathe, and the moment that we create for ourselves to breathe, then the earth can heal on its own.
We're all brothers and sisters, and we're here to unite under this big umbrella. Listen to your dreams. Listen to those small whispers inside of you when it tells you something ain't right in your environment. Listen to your children. Above all, listen to your children. May the cosmic force and great Maka, great-grandmother beneath our feet, guide us in our endeavor. The Amazon has to be saved. Our lungs need air. Watch it.
Where some might see urban decay, others see an opportunity for community empowerment and a sustainable future.
Hey. Hey, Mighty.
My name is Whitney McGuire.
My name is Dominique Drake Ford, and we are Sustainable Brooklyn.
Let's talk about it from just the way the media portrays sustainability. Oftentimes you'll see a Patagonia ad with people backpacking through the Himalayas and they're weathered and, you know, usually white, you know, people talking about zero waste and conserving and minimalism, also white. I think just the way the sustainability movement is portrayed is very myopic, it's very linear, it does not incorporate the different aspects of different cultures that practice sustainability.
Community is at the heart of what we do and who we are. Without building and connecting and shifting the collective consciousness of our community, there is no sustainable Brooklyn. And so we're engaging with community, number one, on social media. Obviously, we live in a digital age. Instagram is very big. It's how we're able to quickly connect and shine spotlights on who we are and what we do. So we've definitely built community very quickly on Instagram. The next layer is our symposiums. They're elemental symposiums, earth, air, fire, water. And the focus is redefining sustainability so that we're changing the lens on who we're speaking to, who's speaking, and how we're creating solutions.
Our volunteer days and our symposia really stem from the fact that we aren't situating ourselves as experts in this field. What we're doing is actively learning with our community. So we're building community as we're actively engaging in the things that we want to know more about. We wanted to see how people in the community are generating ideas for ways to eliminate clothing waste, or at least mitigate it as much as possible. So Fab Scrap is one of those organizations. They have a location down in Brooklyn, Army Terminal. They sort through the clothing donations and sell scraps of fabric, you know, to designers. It's a pretty cool system. I'm excited to go help them sort. I've never done something like that before. I've always been on the donating side, but never on the sorting side. So I'm excited to see how that's going to really reframe the way I even engage with donating clothing.
Welcome, ladies. Thank you for coming in. So really appreciate the help because this is the stack that we have to recycle. What you're going to be doing today is helping me find a home for all the items in your box. Companies give us items, recycle items with us every week, so we take in about 2,000 pounds a week now, and on a monthly basis we're now recycling around 12,000 pounds. Last year when I first started we were doing about 5,000, so within the year we've been able to double. And then we're now serving 400 clients, we'll be able to double that from last year as well. So all of this is what we need your help with.
Yes.
So like I said, textile recycling is just a new concept. So what you're going to be helping me is find a new home for the item, so that way we can make sure that the least amount of it goes to landfill.
The take, make, waste model, how that impacts Black and brown communities first and most often. So the take part, literally like farm migrant workers, laborers, we have people who are currently incarcerated in this bubble. There are a lot of ways that they can be taken advantage of, and that contributes to poor ecosystems for all of them. So then we have make, poor working conditions for, specifically within fashion, because that's my wheelhouse, for people who are making our clothes. But then on the other side, there is this, whole idea is that if we show the people making our clothes, then that would humanize them. But it's really just a way of still continuing to gatekeep the narrative of sustainability
It's
without
still a level of control.
It still really extracts them from the entire movement. So again, they are extracted and taken advantage of. And then the waste part, we see examples of this, especially in West African countries. When I was in Ghana, there were just trash piles so high, full of just old clothes that the U.S. has shipped over there, to just, polyester never decomposes. So it's just sitting in a landfill emitting toxic chemicals.
It is super therapeutic. Wow.
Yes,
look at all this, all these bags of clothes. It's crazy.
What is this?
What does PA stand for?
PA is going to be polyester.
Mixed. If it's mixed, even if it's stretchy, it still goes in the mixed.
Okay.
But if it doesn't have a tag, because we talk about racism so much, and the environmental aspect is one of the most important aspects because it affects our health, it affects the health of our kids, it affects communities, and it affects the entire global system and how the climate crisis is happening. And so there is, if we're talking about justice, we have to talk about environmental racism. The work that we're doing specifically with Sustainable Brooklyn is we're looking at Brooklyn in this microcosm, obviously thinking globally, but we have to understand that we each have circular economies within our own community that we're a part of and is affected, as well as when we're thinking bigger from, bigger brands. So it's important to have a distinguished ideology of both the bigger circular economy and the fact that there are local circular economies, because we matter here on the ground in our little community.
Thanks for going in with us on climate change. For more episodes, check us out on the web at youtube.com/BRIC TV. Bye now.